One, read. You can't read too much. All the people in this book that I talk about, they all have an incredible thirst for knowledge. They will read anything, even if it's not relevant to their day-to-day lives. They just think you can't learn too much and you never know what will come back and help you. Secondly, I think humility. The people I interviewed, they've accomplished a lot of pretty good things. They're pretty successful and very wealthy, but they're pretty humble. And humility isn't a virtue that all of the leaders in our country have, as we have observed, but it's a virtue that I think is pretty good, and they are pretty humble. And I also think teamwork is something important. Learning how to work with other people is really important, and learning how to share the credit is something that a lot of them have. They don't usually talk about I. They talk about we, even though maybe they made the best decision themselves. They tend to talk about their partners. So those are some of the things: teamwork, sharing the credit, taking the blame, humility, reading, and I think generally hard work.
They are generally from nice families. They are not from the poverty-stricken families. They tend to not be Horatio Alger stories. They tend to come from middle-class families, good in math, pretty good students, obviously like to read, like to be in control, like to make the final decision, and they go against conventional wisdom. They're really willing to go against conventional wisdom, which is what makes them great, because if you went with conventional wisdom, you'd presumably be like everybody else. So they're workaholics. There's nobody 9 to 5, just kind of coming in late, leaving early. No, these are workaholics. And for these people, investing is not work, it's pleasure. These people love what they're doing, and if they weren't making the enormous amounts of money that they're making, they'd still do it. This is not something that they really, at this point, need the money for. When you're worth $10 billion or $20 billion, you don't need to go in and work this hard, but they do because they love it.
Anybody in life that gets anywhere has failed, and some people can pick themselves up and get back into the arena, and other people say, look, I'm not good at this, so I'm just going to stay not trying to accomplish anything. And if you look at the great investors in the world, the ones that I've interviewed, certainly, they've all had their failures, and they all kind of picked themselves up and got back in the game, and they've all learned from it. And I've often said that, when you get somebody that's never failed, you have somebody that is probably either not trying to accomplish that much, or they're not going to be that great later. And one of the classic examples, I try to disguise the person's name, but I met somebody early in my career who went to Harvard College, summa cum laude, Rhodes Scholar, president of the Harvard Crimson, PhD from a major university in economics, Yale Law School, Yale editor-in-chief of the Law Journal, Supreme Court clerk, White House fellow, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, chiseled, everything you want. And you kind of say, this person has got everything. And so anytime anybody see this resume or look at this person, they say, we're going to give him a job. So he kept getting these great jobs. But anytime when finally there was a crisis in a job that he had, he wasn't prepared for it because he'd never failed before, and he didn't know how to really deal with the trauma of failure. And so I think failure is probably a pretty good thing because it makes you stronger. If Warren Buffett was a school teacher, would the country be better off or not? I don't know, because the truth is many very talented people go where there is a fair amount of money to be made. On the other hand, there are many very talented people go into professions that don't pay a lot, school teachers or firemen or policemen or others. So it depends on what you really want out of life. Would it be better if people were capped at how much money they could make? I don't think that's realistic or likely to happen. The investment world is a world where you make a lot of money if you're really good at it. But most people who are great investors, they're not trying to flash their wealth. They love what they're doing so much so that this is what they want to do. And after they have enough to pay for their basic family needs and so forth, and their children's needs, they basically are giving away the money. I don't think we should fault people for wanting to be good investors. And this is the reason I think it's an important skill set. Warren Buffett is a person, in terms of his track record, if you put your money in the bank, let's say over the last 60 years, you probably would have averaged maybe 0.5% rate of return a year or so, because bank interest rates are not that high historically. He's averaged 20% a year for 60 years. He's a very focused person. He likes what he's doing. He loves what he's doing. He's living in the same house he bought in the 1950s. He doesn't really go out and buy lots of art or other kinds of accoutrements of wealth. He just is a person who loves what he's doing, and this is what he does all day. I admire his focus, and so he's also very, very charitable. He was the person who set up the Giving Pledge with Bill and Melinda Gates.